Had a little bit of technical difficulties starting this thing. The YouTube was not trying to let it go. And of course, for people who are watching this after it went live, I started the live stream a little bit later than normal. Alright. Let's get y'all in the right position here. Let's see who's popping on here first. So for people, what's up, Brad? I am going to pop my phone case off real quick. So my phone gets too hot if I have it on there. So how's it going? We're starting to hear later than normal. I'm gonna use a piece of steel that I haven't used in a while. It's a piece of 5160, but this was a piece that was left over from another knife that I did. This was back whenever I was doing, the most forging that I was doing was flattening the coil. What's up? Over there in Australia. So I've got this piece of 5160. This is off of, I think, the second knife that I ever made out of the Willys Jeep leaf spring material. That was back whenever the only forging that I really did on the builds were flattening the leaf spring. So taking it from that banana and flattening it out. And then I might have done some forging with like just the texture or something like that. But no real like forging to finish or forging the profile. And I've had this piece for a while. I haven't used it because it has a cut right there. I think what I'm going to do is make a hidden tang knife out of this and actually use this as the section, that little cut that's right there, use this as the section and pull it over. So we're going to take a piece of scrap steel and forge a hidden tang knife out of it. Again, this was like the second knife I ever made out of 5160. I think it was either second or third. Was this cutoff piece right here was part of that, and I'm pretty sure I did this knife for a giveaway. But I'll toss it in the forge. I don't know exactly what profile we're going to go with. I do know that we're going to do a hidden tang, and we're just going to use this section where that cut was for the hidden tang. The crazy thing is, it's been, so I've got all these little buckets and boxes and tubs and totes and all that stuff all up here. These have scrap pieces of cut off of handle material, steel, all that stuff. This has been in one of those little bins for years, and that forge scale that was on it has kept it from rusting. It's just been sitting in that bin. It's pretty cool. So, what's up, Stray? We are gonna go ahead and put this in the forge, start forging it. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take that piece that is that where it has that cut, and I'm going to fold it over. So I'm going to show y'all. Go ahead and erase everything that was on this. Oh yeah, by the way, I want to show y'all this before I erase it. Now remember, last week we did this kind of gaucho integral bolster gaucho knife. That's the profile after I cleaned it up. So that's the sketch. That's the profile. After cleaning it up and getting ready to forge the tang out some more, I went ahead and did the step down. But that tang's going to get forged thinner and longer to become a through tang. But that's the profile with that I-beam style integral, where I flared it out. So that's the one from last week. That is going to be an awesome build right there. And again, with the I-beam integral. But yeah, that's what we did last week. Clean off this dry erase board, and I'm going to show y'all the kind of the process that we're going to use for this. So this piece of steel right now is just a rectangle. It's just a rectangle with a cut in it, just like that right there. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to open this gap right here and take it and turn it into that. So we're going to take this piece, we're going to stretch it out, basically going to forge it over, and then we're going to turn it into this, and then we're going to forge in our tip and start forging our blade. But this is taking a piece of scrap that you would have just maybe tossed in a bin for 3.5 years and taking it and making a good little knife out of it. It's not going to take long for that piece of steel to heat up, because that little area that we're going to fold over is pretty thin. So we're just going to move it over. This piece of material was about 2.5 inches long by about 1.5 inches, just over 1.5 inches tall, and about 3/16 of an inch thick. So we're starting off with about 2.5 inches of length on here, and we're going to turn it into a full-blown, just a cool EDC. I don't know exactly what profile we're going to go with. We're just going to start forging, have some fun. It's going to have probably a little drop point-esque to it. Might do a little harpoon clip type thing on it. We're just going to play with it. We're just going to have some fun. We're going to forge some stuff and make a thing out of a piece of scrap. Alright. So let me grab this little... I've got this guy right here. It actually holds my door open 90% of the time. This little chisel that I have right here. We're going to see if we can use that to help us out. It might help, it might not. I might not even need it. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So we'll end up doing that. Come on over here. Again, This thing is a tiny piece of steel. We're going to get like a full-size knife out of it. But yeah, that'll work. Just want to be careful if you're going to do something like this with a chisel. What's up, Elabic? You don't want to accidentally hit it too hard and forge that into the face of your anvil. You have to clean it up. So like I said, it's only going to take like 20 seconds to heat back up. So what's everybody working on out there? It's Maria, how you doing? Man, I wish I was. Jeez, I wish I was forging that. That would be a lot more profitable than forging knives, that's for sure. And I have way more fun with those too. That side up a little bit. I'll show you what I'm trying to do here. We're just flaring that out just a little bit, because if I did this right now and I just took and put it on the edge of this anvil and I started forging here, would I be able to split it? Sure, but what would end up happening is I would roll these two corners in to the steel. What I want to do is get enough opening here so that I can easily put it on the edge of the anvil and just wedge it out. I don't really want to manipulate the steel in this little corner just yet. I want to keep that as much or as height or as much height as I have in it as possible. So we need to use this to flare that out a little bit. And then what I'll end up doing is get it just enough to where I can then wedge it on this edge of the anvil and pull it out. What's up, Adam? How you doing? Going to weld some beads for us? Nope. So I am forging a knife. Basically what we're doing right now, the step that we're in, is we are going from this shape right here, which was just a rectangle that had a cut in it. This was a cut off from one of the builds that I did years ago. This piece of steel has been just sitting in one of my bins for a while. And I'm going to go ahead. We're going to forge this little section right here out like this, create this profile, kind of like a reverse Oklahoma, or it's actually probably Oklahoma for y'all. And then we're going to go ahead and forge in the corners, create a tip, and then forge a knife profile. And we're going to do bevels, all that stuff on it. So it'll be as close to forge to finish as possible. Hidden tang. I say little hidden tang, it's going to be a full-size knife. Use my little leg tongues if I can actually get it to hold there. These tongues don't do very well with that. I have to switch to my other tongs because they do that real well. Toss it back in here. these I should be fine with it. I guess we'll try it out. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, forge down into it, which I guess it would be easier if I just put it in the vise and did this step. So I probably just made this like a pixel. My anvil base by this point has had so much forge skill on it that whenever that landed on top of my wooden anvil base, it did almost nothing. We're going to switch hammers. See right there? Bigger gap. So we'll do that one more time, and we should get a bit as much gap as we need, because I won't be sitting here messing with it. So we'll go ahead, let that heat back up just for a second, and continue to forge. The best part about what we're doing right now is that little area is, again, so small that it takes no time to heat up. Did some first time learning on cold forge. That's pretty awesome. Stainless steel Viking arm ring. That's pretty cool. I guess you'd think Vikings are women. It's all good. Vikings, Native Americans, a whole bunch of people. Now I have enough of a wedge there. We'll go ahead and put it back in the forge and change the camera angle. Whoop. There we go. Bring y'all back down towards the anvil. So now what I'll be able to do is just put that tab on the edge of the anvil and then hammer in the corner. Basically put the tab itself on the anvil and then end up hammering in on the corner here. And that will end up getting this closer to the shape that we want. We'll get this thing nice and hot in order to do this. What's up, Danny? How you doing? So this is actually my phone. I use my phone for most of my live streams. Not only do I have on shorts, but I also have on Hey Dudes and a tank top. Super safe in here. I've forged in sandals, so yeah. The funny thing is, I have an apron right there, like right there. It is what it is. It was about 102 degrees outside today, so right there on the edge, hammer in on the corner. And then we'll heat it back up again. But you can see I'm not messing with this edge right here. This edge is staying nice and sharp, and we're swinging this guy out. I have done bacon without a shirt on. I wouldn't suggest it. All right, Andrea, you have an awesome night too. Sorry, I had to, yeah, I had to do that right there. All right, let's go ahead and continue forging. Like, these tongs are okay, they're not my favorite. Should be able to start working that out. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. How much wider than these tongs it is. Yeah, just a little bit too wide for my other box jaw tongs. Technically, he didn't get the bend hammer. I just muted him for 30 minutes. If he's still part of the if he's still part of the live stream or still watching in 30 minutes, he can go ahead and talk again. Or she, I don't know. Assuming it's probably he. You never know. You never know. Alright. Let's get this back out of here. And continue with our thing. I wish it was easy to get stuff out of the forge with these tongs. trying to do right now is make sure that I forge this hump as far in as possible so that whenever I finish bending this out, I don't get a weird cold shut right there. So the next couple of heats are going to be me putting it right here and then hammering at an angle into here. Just into that corner or that edge. We're going to work that in and then we're going to finish pulling this up. So other things that I really don't like about these tongs is the profile of the handle. I might end up forging these tines out a little bit because you look at these versus these right here. These are nice and round and smooth. These dig into your hand when you're holding them because they have sharp edges. Now I could probably go through and forge those and reprofile them a little bit, which I might end up doing, but we'll see how that goes. Take a hammer with just bend etched on it. I mean, I probably could do that. Let's go ahead and grab this out of here. Keep working on that corner. I'll leave it in here for just a little bit longer. It's only going to take about another 10 seconds before we can actually start forging that. We don't need this section to be super hot because we're just trying to work that edge in. I'm not trying to deform a lot of stuff or mess with the material that much. So we don't need to go super crazy with the heat right now. So what I might do, well, no, this, as long as I forge in this section right here, I should be fine. So one of the things that I like about the V-bore anvil that's back here, a little bit better than my vintage anvil, is it has super sharp edges. So whenever you're doing processes like this, it's a lot easier to use a sharp edge whenever you're forging, as opposed to some of these more rounder edges. So this would be fine. Now, if I would have forged the tip into this and been able to hold it with the box jaw tongs, this process would be going way faster. But again, because I'm using these guys, it's not going that fast. Alright. But we can get back after it. And for anybody who's new to the live stream right now, if you're wondering what the heck we're doing, we are forging a knife from a piece of scrap 5160. This 5160 came from a project that I was working on a few years ago. All I'm doing right now is I'm taking this piece of steel and pinching it, moving it out, and that's going to be our tang. So basically what's going to end up happening is we're going to have this shape right here where this piece right here is the tang, and then we end up forging a blade out of that section. So right now we're just going to keep forging that little piece out and back. We should be exactly where we need to be. Let's see here. Yeah, and if y'all aren't part of the Discord, if you go to my About Me page, I have my Discord channel in it. It's easy to go to, click on it, and become a part of that. Grab these tongs right here. So one of the things that I do if you're new here is I like to show the process of forging different things. Using different hammers and things like that. So now, all we got to do is keep working this little area and create another little step down, and we will have our section that's going to be our tang and our step down to go down into it. Right now what I'm using is my Two Bastards dog head hammer. You don't know who them people are. There you go, Two Bastards. Those are the people that sponsor my live streams. I'll talk more about them in a little bit here. What's up, Jason? What are you doing tonight other than watching me forge? And what Steve said, what's everybody working on right now? Y'all know what I'm working on. Oh, and for the people who just hopped on here, I showed this a minute ago. This is what we forged last weekend. I cleaned it up a little bit. Started working on the tang. So that is our forged integral gaucho, where I I-beamed the steel to create the integral. So this was out of a piece of flat bar, and I forged this and I-beamed it in order to create that integral bolster. But that is the gaucho. So that was forged in the last week's live stream. Showed the process of creating an integral bolster out of a piece of flat stock. Let's grab this and continue forging. The knife that we're forging tonight will have bevels forged into it. It'll be as close to forged to finish as possible. That way we can get as big a knife as possible. Kind of forging into this at an angle. That's hanging off the anvil where that little step down is. Got that little step down right there. I'm going to end up making another one here in just a second. That'll be, I'll show you on this gaucho knife. So basically what that'll be is the step down that goes into the tang here. There's a step here and a step here. There's a little step down. You'll have your kind of your ricasso area right here, and then it'll step down into a tang. So I guess I can actually show it on this little Damascus knife. This is one of my little Damascus knives. So something like that right there, where it actually steps down on either side here. That's what we're going to be forging in the next one. We're not going to have a tang this long. That tang's kind of really long for a knife this size. But that's one of my little kitchen knives. Got a real fine edge on it, out of Damascus. That's going to be a beautiful knife. I'll show you the handle material for this one. The handle material is this live edge Abonia. So this right here is right at about 80 layers. And then that live edge Abonia is what's going on it. I'm going to do a real sleek kind of a wall handle, but for a smaller knife. So it's going to be a smaller version of a wall handle. If you don't know what that looks like, you can look it up on Google. All right, let's go ahead, grab this out of here. For this step, I really don't need to use those tongs. I'm not going to be hitting it that hard. Let's use this little hammer here because I don't need a very heavy hammer to do what I'm about to do. I'm going to use one of my cross beads. Basically what I want to do is create that other step down, but you need a sharp edge in order to do this. And I don't want to use a guillotine because it'll create an equal dip on both sides. I just want to create a dip on one side. So we might use, the cool thing about my sponsor is he doesn't care if I use somebody else's hammer. So this is a John Norwood hammer, Old Hickory Forge. It's got a real sharp edge on it. We're going to go ahead and try that to do this step down. Make an axe. So I have a lot of people who ask me about making hammers and axes. They ask, why don't you make hammers and axes? So for one, the people who make hammers and axes really like to make hammers and axes. Matt, you've touched a lot of stuff in the shop. So the people who make hammers and axes, if they can make it and it makes sense for them to do it because they have the tooling and they have the process down and all that, it's fantastic. Hatchets and axes and hammers, they don't sell for very much. So if you could sell a hammer for $250, if you don't have all the tooling, it would take me a long time to make a hammer because I don't have a press and all that stuff. Same thing with the axe or hatchet because I would have to do the drifting of the hole and all that stuff, all the profiling by hand. Maybe with the power hammer a little bit, but the amount of time that it would take me to make one of those would take a while. It's not very beneficial price-wise whenever I can make a knife and sell it for $500 to $800. So whenever I put that, time into something and I get my money back out of it, it's fantastic. Making a hammer or an axe or a hatchet by hand just doesn't make sense unless you have the tooling and you can make it faster. Or you have a passion to make those things. We're going to hang it off and then I'm going to forge on the actual raised section. starting to step it down just a little bit. Matter of fact, I'm going to leave it exactly how it is for right now. I can forge out the tang just a little bit in length, but we'll do that real quick. But we're going to go ahead and start working on our blade. Some people might be thinking, Eric, how in the world is that tiny piece of steel going to turn into a tang? Because it is like this long and like that tall. You're about to see. It should only take about one heat to stretch this tang out. But a lot of people don't realize, because they think, if I grab that little chef's knife, that's not a very thick tang because the blade's not very thick. It's a chef's knife. A lot of people will think, well, that's going to be a very weak tang or something like that. What they don't realize is that all the pocket knives that they have, all those cool little flippers that they use every single day to whittle on things, to cut things, to open boxes, to pick their teeth and do all that stuff, all of those have like zero tang. No tang. The tang is basically a hole, a pivot point, so their tang is just a circle. And then it's got a liner lock on most of them. And that's what keeps everything good. But all you have on that blade is a good sized blade and then a little bitty circle going around the backside of it as your tang. And y'all use those knives all day, every day to do all kinds of crap. This has more of a tang right now, before I forge it out, than almost every single one of your flippers or your folder EDCs. Let that sink in. We just tripled the length of that. So there you go. We're still nice and thick at the ricasso. So now what I'm going to do, go ahead and grab it with the other set of tongs that are easier to hold. Is box jaw right here. Be able to grab the tang with those. Get after it. So what we're going to start off on here is we're going to start knocking in those edges, and we're just going to kind of mess with this. There's a few ways that you can do this. If you are comfortable with it, you can take it and you can hammer there and have this section right here. You can have that hanging off, or you can hammer here, flip it, hammer here. So hammer here with this side on the anvil, and then flip it over like this. This side's on the anvil, hammer here, and slowly work those corners in to give yourself rounded edges like that. So start taking this sharp corners off and give yourself rounded edges, and then start forging in your point. Or you can take and hang it off the anvil to where the anvil is right here. So your point or your tip is, so here's the edge of the anvil, your tip is off the anvil, and you start hammering about right here, just behind the tip. So if you start doing that, let's erase some of this stuff. You start hammering like that, what ends up happening is the anvil starts to create a little wedge there. You start creating a little wedge there, and this section starts bumping out. And then you forge that area down and eventually start working yourself into a tip. That looks horrible. We cannot show that on YouTube. Even though I have this not for kids, we're going to erase that because that was starting to look a little ridiculous, a little phallic. Can't have that on the YouTubes. I'm trying to get canceled. Go back to my dog head hammer, two bastards, okay? We are going to do two methods. So for one, like I said, we could come in here, hang it off the edge, start working that in, or you can hang it on the anvil and start forging in the tips. What you're trying to avoid right now, if you look at this, if I just kept doing what I was doing, this starts to curve in right here. And whenever you forge this, what ends up happening is the edge is touching the anvil, the side that's touching your hammer, those start stretching, okay? They start stretching out, and this doesn't exactly recess, but what happens is the two outsides stretch out and it creates a mouth. And whenever you forge that down, you end up with what we call fish lips. We don't want that. So we need to be able to forge in a point. We're going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the method where we'll put you all the way down here. Okay, so I'm going to do the method where I hang it over, and we are going to, so if you're 12 years old, I'm assuming Maria is probably your mom. So anyways, we're going to hang it off the edge, and we're going to end up forging it the way that I like doing it. I'm going to start hammering as soon as this heats back up, which is almost hot enough. I need to turn my fan though so that it's not blowing on the anvil. Okay, that should be good. Got to have the fan blowing some outside air in here, even though it's hot outside. It's still cooler, it's cooler outside than it is in here. So hang it off. There. What's going to end up happening is this section right here is going to stretch out. So it's going to go like this and work its way out while this is getting forged in. So this is just going to slightly just start working its way out towards the tip there. What's up, DL? We are forging a little EDC out of a piece of scrap steel. This is a piece of steel from one of my first times actually using 5160. So this was a project that I did back in the days whenever I first got my anvil and started doing the projects, and all I did was flatten leaf springs and then do like forged textures, stuff like that, and then I did stock removal for everything. This was one of those. It was a piece of a cutoff that I've had in my bins over here forever, and yeah, now I'm going to do that. I'm trying to melt cast iron with propane in a homemade forge. That's not melting. You need to do something more akin to a crucible and have it going for a really long time. So if you put it in a crucible and have that forge as high PSI as you can get it there. Or you can make a cold forge and do that and melt it. Keep working it. We're going to keep working that little area out. So what ends up happening here, the reason why this piece gets pushed out, other than when we're hammering like this and it's slightly moving it, what happens is this area is getting forged in and creating an I-beam. So it's getting wider this way. And then whenever I come in here and I forge it flat, that still's got to go somewhere. What's going to do is it's going to go and pinch and push the tip out. And the cool thing about doing this, as opposed to, let's say I was to cut the tip out of this versus forging the point. Whenever you forge the point, what ends up happening is all that grain that's in the steel actually compresses to the tip. And I'm not saying that makes like a super badass strong tip or something like that. What I'm saying is, for me, I tend to do stone washes or etch a lot of my blades. So I do a ferric chloride, acid, and distilled water etch on the blades. And what it'll do a lot of the times is it'll show the banding of the steel. So it'll show the actual grain, the banding of the steel. And whenever I etch it for a little bit longer and do a stone wash on it, or just etch it and do a Scotch-Brite finish, like a satin finish, you can see all of those lines work their way all the way to the tip. So you can see all of that structure go all the way to the point. But if I was to just cut the point in, it would all just kind of flow forward, but it wouldn't compress to the tip. It wouldn't actually curve into that, which is pretty cool. Get this heated back up. Is my birthday. Nice. late birthday. I'm going to hang it off the edge of the anvil. Forge that little guy back into there. We'll do that one more time. Won't have any more bump right there. I feel like all of my all the people watching this that are over the age of 30 are watching the comment section going, what the heck is going on in this knife making video? Like, yeah, you're a leather worker at like 12? That's pretty awesome. All right, get this back out of here, continue forward. Again, just hold it against the edge of the anvil like this. Forge that back in. Heat it back up, even though it's still got heat in it. But now you can see we're just going to work that point forward. Cool thing is, once you have a tip in here, you're good. Now, a lot of the times what I tend to do pre-forging is see if I got a piece of steel that has that all done. There we go. So pre-forging, I will typically take, and whenever I'm cutting out the pieces of steel that I'm going to use, just the section that's going to separate the two pieces of steel, instead of cutting a straight line like this, I cut an angle. That way all I got to do when I start forging is come in here, knock that edge in, and then we already have our point. And then we can just work this up to wherever we want it to go. So I pre-cut that in whenever I'm doing this, instead of going through the hassle of doing this. It's even helpful if you just cut like that much of an angle. You don't have to go that steep. That just worked with this particular knife that I was working on. But you can barely cut an angle into there, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. I don't even know where y'all are at in this conversation right now. I'm so used to like popping in here and y'all are talking about like knife projects or random stuff like that. I just know that whenever I pop in here right now, there's a chance that one of my 3 kids would understand what I'm talking about. I'm just over here forging a knife. That's what we're doing right now. So this is called a dog head hammer. Some people like using it, some people don't like using it. It versus a... Now this hammer is not a very good example because it's you know, has a pretty decent gap between the face and the handle. But for one, you can see how much higher this is. One, it automatically indexes with the head down versus this is pretty much weighted to both sides. This automatically wants to fall face down. But for me, I like it because my hand is way away from the anvil and it's a little bit further away from the heat of the blade. So if I'm forging and I'm having to get my hand semi-close to it, it puts my hand a little bit further away. But again, it's a personal preference. I like it. This is a Two Bastards dog head hammer. They don't make many of them, but I love mine. There we go. This is like the goofiest looking blade right now. A lot of that's just because of how stubby it is. I might go ahead and forge a little bit on it. We'll put it back in the forge for right now. Because I think what I'm going to do is squeeze it down just a little bit. Squeeze it down just a little bit so it's not as tall, because that's partly what's making it as unruly as it is, because I'm basically forging a square at this point and putting a tip on a square. Bring a light over here. So forging a tip into a square isn't exactly ideal. There we go. So I'm basically forging a square into a point, almost like an arrowhead. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and step the height down a little bit. And by doing that, it's going to elongate the blade, make it a little bit easier to do this, which I probably should have done this in the first place because I didn't need it this tall. It's one of those hindsight things. I should have went ahead and narrowed the blade down, and then I wouldn't have had to have forged as much of a tip. So learn from that and take it, because if I would have just cut it down to about right there and I only had to forge in just a little bit of a tip, it would have been way easier to round it as opposed to going with something that is legit a square and trying to forge that point into it. We're going to get this out in just a second here. Let's see how this looks in here. Had to go in the house and get a drink. It's still a little warm in here. So we're going to take it and just this height down a little bit. That's going to make that quite a bit easier. So, how's y'all's weekend going? My weekends are always my longest days because if y'all don't know this, I work for Pepsi, and like on Saturday, today, I got up at about 4 a.m., went into work, worked 12 hours, and then came home, relaxed for about an hour, came up with a game plan for this live stream, started a live stream. I'm going to forge for a couple hours, and then I'm going to go inside, eat dinner, and go to sleep. And then I'm going to start it all over again. Get up at 4 a.m., do another 12 hours tomorrow, then 12 hours the next day, and then 16 hours the day after that. So yeah, it's whew. Yeah, getting it done while I'm done. Yeah, I do that almost every single Saturday. That little dolphin right there, let's make a dolphin knife. The funniest part about a lot of these knives is we'll be at a point to where they look like what they look like right now, and then by the time they're all said and done and I'm done forging, they look like a full-blown knife. Like, it's kind of ridiculous how goofy a lot of the profiles are in the process of me forging. for the end result that I get, mind-boggling compared to what the dang thing looks like right now. So going from the point that we're at right now to what it's going to look like at the end of this live stream is ridiculous. Trying to stay away from work as much as possible. Yeah. Yeah, and we talk about standing up almost all day. I typically walk between 8 and 10 miles a day, and on my days off, so on Wednesday and Thursday, at this point, I go to a track that we have that's just down the street from me at one of the high schools, and I go and I jog, walk backwards about 6 miles each day. All right, grab this out, continue forging. Continue compressing it. At this point, what I'm doing is I'm doing the reverse of what I was doing on the edge of the anvil, where I was hammering right here, had it hanging over. I'm using the anvil kind of as the hammer, and I'm coming in at an angle. So at an angle like this, I'm hammering down, and that's compressing that to a point. Going next. Things that are a trade. Not using one as a handle. Yeah, burl wood. Thank you, Kenneth. A little teeth picker. I could do that. Whew. You know, even though it cooled down outside, it is still spicy in here. I'm gonna get this other door open a little bit. You know, it sucks that I can't have the fan just blowing on me. If I did that, the fan would be blowing right here. The whole entire time it'd be cooling down the steel we're forging. Alright, let's go ahead and continue forging. Hanging off the edge just a little bit. That next heat will make that a point. And then we'll start forging a blade profile. And we'll start forging in some bevels. And you'll be able to see the full bevels forged down to a cutting edge, everything. Toby, was that you calling the phone here just a second ago? By the way, Toby is my son. And what type of knife are you making? We are making a hidden tang, kind of like a EDC profile. Toby, you're in a car? You're in your mom's van? So Toby has found out that he can watch. So my car that I typically drive back and forth to work, the screen that's on the dash is basically a tablet, and he found out that he could watch Netflix and YouTube in the car. And so what he wants to do is go out to my car just at random times and just watch Netflix or YouTube in the car. You know, he has all that stuff to watch inside the house. He either wants to come to watch the TV that's in the shop or the one in the car. Back to even thickness. Planish it back out. We have ourselves a little wedge right there. Now that can be forged into a blade. So what's going to end up happening on this next heat is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to planish the thickness to one even plane, one even thickness, and then I'm going to go ahead and start forging in the bevels. When I forge in the bevels, I'm not using this hammer. I'm going to be using this Two Bastard / Mark Ling collaboration rounding hammer. We're going to be using the round side. There's a round side, and there's a flat side. We're going to be using the round side to forge in the bevels initially. Here in Brooklyn right now. And yeah, that is a good question. I don't know. I think Duck is in New York right now. He's in the, if you're not part of the Discord, he is in the Discord, and he actually said where he's out right now in the Discord. So we're going to let this heat up just a little bit more. And we're going to start forging in our bevels. I'm not super worried. Like, the tip isn't 100% perfect right now, but as I forge in those bevels, it's going to stretch that edge, and it's going to actually line the tip up for me perfectly. Right now what we have is we have a wedge. So I'm going to go ahead and show the stage that we're at right now. So the stage that we're at right now, for the most part, is this right here. What ends up happening is whenever I start forging in the bevels here, this whole entire cutting edge is going to get longer. So it's going to start to curve like that. So this section is going to go this way. This section is going to go that way. And it's going to end up becoming a profile that looks kind of like that. So, of course, minus this little arrow, but it's going to be a profile that kind of looks like that. And we're going to kind of go from there. Like, it's not even super hot outside, but I am legit pouring sweat right now. Like, it is It is still a little spicy. Come in here. Turn on just a little bit. We're going to forge on that bottom edge. Go ahead and heat it back up. As you can see right now, there's the initial shaping of what I was talking about. The reason why I said that we don't have to worry about that little slight bump that's right there, because that's going to get fixed as we go through and forge this. But you can see it's starting to create that shape, and all we did was we just forged on the bottom half, almost third of that blade. So you can see the two different shades right here to here. So we're going to do that one more time. Then we're going to correct the profile a little bit. So a second ago I said that I was going to, get everything flat. When I pulled it out, I saw that it was relatively flat. So it wasn't necessary to do that step. That's why I went straight into forging in the bevels. So what we're going to do, we're going to forge in the bevels. Again, another phase of that. And then we're going to clean up the profile. I don't finish doing the flats. And by flats, I'll tell you what I'm talking about, or show you what I'm talking about. Let's see here. We'll show it on this knife. So you've got your bevels and you got your flats. So this darker area is our flats, kind of our ricasso area into our flats. I don't work on this area until after I get those bevels forged, because I might need to use this material to get a little extra length here. I might need to fix something later. So I like to leave that material where it's at, because I can always take that material and put it in a different spot and make it work. Or I can have the blade be slightly thicker at the spine if I want to. So you got a lot of area to play with right there and manage your material with. You'll see a lot of people who go through and do the forging process when they're bladesmithing, and what they do is they try and forge the whole blade the entire time. So they're focused on the tang, the blade, the flatness of it, the profile, everything, the whole entire time, and they end up wasting a lot of time fixing things that don't need to be fixed at that phase. We're forging the blade, we're working on the blade. Screw what the tang is doing. We're working on the tang, that's what we're working on, kind of screw what the blade's doing. You'll end up blending those two things together whenever you actually finish the profile. Toby, Ducky is in New York. You can stop asking. Mid-60s? Geez, I wish it was the mid-60s here. That is my favorite temperature. Between 60 and 65? Man, that's beautiful weather. So it's doing what I said it was going to do. Right there. It's doing that. I just need to clean up that profile. We're going to clean it up on this next heat. But we got our bevels looking good. So we'll clean up the profile just a little bit, and we'll keep forging on those bevels because we got to end up bringing those bevels up towards the spine. We got to end up forging what's going to be our plunge line going from the bevels into the ricasso area, and then just make sure everything looks nice and even and clean. Because you end up forging the bevels in, what ends up happening is you have a distal taper that ends up naturally occurring. I'll show you all talking about there for people who are new to this. Put it up that way. Here we go. So you end up with this distal taper where it's thicker here and thinner here. So you've got to make sure that this is centered in here, not pushed off to one side or the other. So whenever you forge in bevels, you got to make sure that this heel is centered into here. And you got to make sure that tip is centered into here. This one has a double distal because the tang is distal, so you have to make sure that this is centered to here and that this is centered to here. So it's even harder, especially whenever you do 3 distals. Taper down to the cutting edge, taper to the tip, taper to the tang. You do all of those steps, you got to make sure everything ends up being centered. Forge the point down. You want to make sure that if you're doing the step that I'm doing right now, that you are planishing it back out. What will end up happening, since we forged in our bevels and that edge is thinner, what will end up happening is that thinner edge will fold over, and you don't want that to happen. So you got to make sure that you're forging the tip in and you're flattening, forging and flattening, forging and flattening, so that it doesn't fold over on you. But you can see right now we already have that distal working in here. So thicker at the spine right here, down to thinner at the tip. Blade profile starting to look like a blade profile. Still plenty of work to do. I'm going to end up switching tongs. Like stop with the box jaw tongs and work with just the regular tongs at this point, because we're not moving a bunch of steel, we're just adjusting things. And a lot of times when we're hitting it hard, the steel is laying flat. So you can use these tongs when the steel's laying flat. What those box jaw tongs are really good at is if you have the steel like this and you got to hammer down on it, it wants to move all kinds of directions because you only have a thin surface area on the actual anvil. When it's like this, it's not going to bounce around as much. But when it's like this, it wants to do things like this, fly out of the tongs, hit you in the face, almost blind you. Didn't learn that from experience. And also, yes, I did learn that from experience. See you, Toby. I'll be inside whenever I'm done doing this. So do you have your AC on? Like, of course, you don't really forge right now, so you use a heat treat. Well, do you have your forge on inside your AC shop? And if you do, what does that do to the temperature in the shop? I don't have a press video because I don't have a press. What I have is a power hammer. So I have this guy. Power hammer that Steve Jennings made. He was in the comment section here just a little bit ago. But yeah, love that thing. I just don't use it for the live streams. A lot of people like to see me do this stuff by hand. Keep working on this profile. I'm using the round side of the hammer on this, so we can kind of keep that little up sweep that we have. Force that little bump back in. Come in with the flat side of this hammer. Get back onto the bevels. Really just planishing them at this point. Right now our tang looks really funky. It's got a hook down. Not worried about that. We'll end up straightening that up. Right now I'm just worried about making sure that everything's even. So profile is going to change just a little bit on this next heat, because what I'm going to do on the next heat is I'm going to forge these bevels up towards the spine. So as of right now, we've primarily been forging on this bottom section right here. This section that my finger is covering. We need them to go all the way up to here. So on this next heat, we're going to be forging more towards the spine. What that's going to do is that's going to extend this section out just a little bit. So it's going to extend that out a little bit, and it's going to give me a subtle plunge line. Garage faces south. I wouldn't even think about using the forge. 105 outside. Trust me, you got to be dedicated to be out here when it's this hot and doing this. But I like doing these live streams, so that's why I do it. Still here, just heading home after 11 hours in the tractor. You know, I know how that feels, man. Not in the tractor, but in the stores that I work. Jeez, their back rooms are always hot. So I feel you. Little Gray Wolf Forge, what's going on? It's above 80 outside, you're done. It's above 80 most of the year in Texas. We have those months where it's below 80, but we've had winters here, Christmases here in this town, to where you could still be wearing flip-flops, shorts, and a tank top on Christmas Day, because it's like 85 degrees outside, 90 degrees. Good old Wichita Falls, Texas. Our weatherman about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, said that summer was done. No more triple digit days. It's going to be in the 90s or lower. He was wrong. It's going to be in the 100 plus all weekend. Yay. Falls. He said, nice, I'm moving to Texas. Yeah, it's a little spicy here most of the time. Like I said, flat side of this hammer, working our way up. Matter of fact, I'm going to switch to the dog head. So one of the things that y'all need to know while I'm doing this forging is whenever I'm hammering, okay, it is like this. I have this tilted slightly and I'm hammering it at an angle. I don't have it just flat on the anvil. I have it slightly tilted and I'm pinching as I go. And like I said, it did change the profile a little bit. Made it a little bit taller, made it a little bit longer. That distal now comes from a little bit from right here to a lot finer point. Starting to look nice and straight. This is kind of a little Bowie knife, but I have an idea how I'm going to end up profiling it. I'm going to do it. I got a profile here, and I'll show you if I still have it. Yeah. So it'll end up having a little harpoon clip like this right here on it. That'll be it's not going to be this exact profile. It's going to be taller than this, but it'll have a little harpoon spine like this, a little swedge on it that'll end up making on there. Let this thing heat back up. So on this next heat, we're going to go ahead, keep doing basically the same thing that I just did. We're going to switch to this lightweight auto body hammer, and we're going to clean up the bevels a little bit. We're not going to go 100% perfect on them because I need to straighten up the tang and get the tang exactly how I want it before we planish the whole entire thing together. I see you over there, Toby. He's on our back patio. What's the kind of blade called? That's like a fist weapon, like a push dagger. Yeah, it's called a push dagger. So basically, this little push dagger. Boop, boop. That's what that is. One of these days I'll finish that little push dagger build. Clean this up a little bit. not need a lot of heat in the steel for this particular phase. I'm going to heat it back up with the tang in there and go ahead and straighten up our tang. As you can see, we're got a little hook going on there. What we'll end up doing on this heat is we will do two things. Bring the ricasso down a little bit, because right now the spine kind of hooks up and then hooks down where the tang is. And we need to bring that ricasso down in line with the spine. Let's see here. Look up Meteor tonight. 2 football fields long. Yeah, you'll have to check that out, Toby. Yeah, I would feel like 800,000 miles is like very close. So our goal for this heat that we're about to do right now is to primarily get the ricasso and the tang hot, not the whole entire blade. Right now, we're good there. We just need to flatten this out. I don't want to use the other tongs right now because I don't want to mess up the blade. See that we still need to get this section right here down, and we'll have a nice little kind of arch to this. What's up, Tanisha? Wife of mine? How was your foam party thing? Yeah. They went to a foam party / car show thing while I was prepping for being out here with y'all. So what's the comment called? What's the name of it that's going to be flying past here tonight? Now for us, we have a lot of overcast right now. The overcast decided to get overcasty when the sun went down. So it's just like, we're going to be bright when it's hot. And whenever the sun goes down, we're going to get overcast. Ridiculous. Whenever it's overcast in this town, it cools down like 10 degrees. Switch hammers. Get down into that kind of finger choil area. Work this down. That's looking a little bit better. Make sure we planish that area as we're doing this. So now I'm going to show y'all something. So you see where we're at right now with this, how it's still bumped up, and I don't want to forge this section any thinner. I'm going to show y'all the reason behind leaving the spine thick on this next heat. I'm going to show y'all a little cheat and trick thing. So we want to put an arch. We want to put an arch to the spine, okay? But we don't want to hammer and make that area smaller. So there's a way to actually work this, and we are going to use the Two Bastards fat peen in order to do this. So this is a straight peen, straight fat peen. The reason why it's called a fat peen is because it's wider than these narrower peens like this right here. This is one that has a flat side. It's perfect for what we're about to do. So I'm about to take that extra width, the extra thickness that I had at the spine, and I'm going to use it to arch the spine. It's going to be fun. So we're going to use that. You can also use a rounding hammer. If you didn't have a fat peen like this, you can use the rounding hammer to do the phase that we're about to do. So you kind of use whatever you need to do this, but what we're going to do is we're going to stretch that spine and give ourselves that arch. Basically doing the same thing that we do to the cutting edge. We're going to do that same thing, but we're going to direct the flow of the steel with a tool that helps you do that. So, Two Bastards, Texas Smithian Supply. I've got links for them in every single video. You can go on Facebook. It's Frank and Nita. It's also F&N Metalworks. Frank and Nita, husband and wife, they are the Two Bastards. Okay. So we're going to take and we're going to cross peen. The spine. And you can see we've already taken a lot of this arch that went up and we've straightened it out just by doing what we've done there. So what's happening is all I'm doing is basically hammering straight down on the flats, but because the bevels are already forged, it's only hammering on the spine. Now I'm not hammering at an angle like this. I'm just hammering flat, but because the bevels are already forged in, the only area that it contacts is just the flats up here. So you do that, and then when you come in and you planish, which we're going to heat it up again, when you planish, it pushes, we got all these valleys that are forged right here. We're going to push those peaks down even with the valleys, and all that still's got to go somewhere. So what happens is it comes down and stretches out, and it is going to put the rest of the arch into our spine there. So instead of going through and trying to hammer on the cutting edge or the spine and on the ricasso and risk screwing up the profile or screwing up the height of your ricasso, you can use other sections of the steel to get everything where you need it to go. So you got to think that stuff through as you're doing your forging experience, as you're learning how to manipulate the material. Because what's going to happen is you're going to think, well, I've got to correct this area, and in the process of trying to correct it, you're going to end up messing with it to a point to where you're going to want to throw that blade across the room, and you don't want to do that. You end up with a lot of scrap knives whenever you start messing things up. But if you go through it enough and you start realizing what material you can shift to other spaces using specific tools or specific sections of your hammer, you'll actually get used to doing some really cool stuff by just manipulating the steel a little bit. This is going to be a good looking profile, and I know that once I put a really cool shaped handle on it, that it's going to be absolutely awesome. So I'm going to do a handle. Let's see. Got one of my blades. So I'm going to do a hidden tang, like I said, with this, but I'm going to do a handle that has some nice contouring, like this one right here, except for it's going to have a little bit more arch in it. But that blade right there, it's going to have a really good shape to it that hooks around your hand like this. If y'all haven't seen this one, this is all hammer and anvil. We did this on a live stream. A grinder hasn't touched this at all. So the thickness of this edge on here, that's all hammer and anvil. The profiling, the symmetry, everything, the distals, the spine, how even and clean the spine is. That is all hammer and anvil. The contouring, how clean all of this stuff is. And it fits my hand. Perfect. But yeah, we'll end up doing a handle kind of like that on this. A little bit more of the straight beam. And the flat side. So now this handle runs how we want it to run, and it'll end up, I'm going to correct this tang here in just a second, and then the handle will hook down, come back in, and wrap around your hand. But we were able to take that where it kicked up right here, completely out of it without actually forging on either of this section. Now we'll go ahead, clean this tang up a little bit, and then we'll planish everything together. Make sure our plunge line transitions and all that stuff are all nice and clean. I have no clue what the heck y'all are talking about right now. Y'all are still on the length and stuff? Y'all are cracking me up. Y'all are cracking me up right now with all that. It's been the most random comment section ever. This is going to be a really cool looking knife. Whenever I'm done with this, I really like this profile. I think once I'm done with the handle profile that I'm going to put on this, oh, here. I can actually show y'all this. This is going to be like a small version of this thing over here. That guy. going to be like a smaller version of this thing. So how there's a little bit of a harpoon, arch the spine, hooks around your hand right here. Of course, not the same exact as this, but that gives you an idea. Go back to the anvil. The funny thing is, the other blades that are on there are builds that we've already done on this on these live streams, and they really look like those. All right, so let's go ahead and get everything exactly how we want it. Just working on this tang, just in that little heat. We got our tang how we wanted it, and all I did on there was basically where there was quite a bit of a step down steel right here. I just put it on the anvil at that step, and then I hammered the opposite direction, and what happened is it just shifted the tang down, filled in this step down a little bit, and created a step down here. Now we're even where it tapers down into it. And that, right there, I'll end up grabbing it from the tang, is our profile. But I'll grab it from the tang and actually show it to y'all a little bit better. So let me go ahead and lay this down. Now we're not completely done yet. We still need to planish everything together, but nothing's really going to change on the profile. But that is our blade profile. That is full forged, bevels, distal taper, hidden tang. What's going to be nice about this is how tall this heel is. Whenever I do the really cool handle contouring, I can get real crazy with it because of how tall that section is. Typically, if this is short, you can only do so much to the contouring. But I'm going to put a real cool faceted handle on here, and I think it's going to look really cool once I do the little bit of a harpoon on the spine down into this nice long blade. So this overall thing started, it was 2.5 inches long. So it doesn't even technically fully 2.5 inches. So about right there, it was about that long. Okay? That's how much we started with, about 2.5 inches long by about 1.5 inches tall. This is what we have now. This overall length is 6.5 inches long, and the cutting edge is 4 1/8. So we started off with 2.5 inches. We have a 4 1/8 inch long cutting edge. That's a full size knife. 4 1/8 inch from heel to tip. It's definitely not bad. Now we need to put it back in the forge, heat it back up, and then go ahead and planish everything together. We're going to use the auto body hammer to do that. That guy right here. Well, for one, what helps the steel take or stay hot longer is the thinner you get it forged. So whenever you forge in the bevels, it's actually going to heat quicker. And really, my anvil's probably about 115 degrees right now. So if I just held my hand on the face of the anvil, I would eventually get a blister. But the face of the anvil is nice and hot. It's about 125 degrees inside the shop. I have no wind blowing right here. So if I turned my fan that's down here and faced it to the anvil, it would cool down way faster. If I was forging outside and there was a breeze, it would cool down way faster. When you're forging in a shop and there's not any real airflow, it's going to stay hot longer. And it actually stays hot longer than what you think it does, because all the lights in here make the steel look colder faster. I could forge it for another, most of the time, a minute longer than what I actually forge it. But I get so many people, a lot of armchair warriors, or a lot of armchair bladesmiths and blacksmiths that think that I'm forging cold because it looks cold in the video, but really it's just because of the lighting. But it's still glowing red at that point whenever I stop forging. I've had to show people with the lights off. So right now what we're going to do, come in here, even everything up. Get everything straight with this little flattening hammer, auto body hammer. Don't really need to do much because we're already looking good. Looking down it, making sure everything is nice and even. Okay, now we're good. Now the only thing that I'll probably end up cleaning up on the 2x72 is this little bump right here. I don't like that, so I'll just clean that up on the 2x72. But that right there is our blade, distal taper forged all the way into the tip, bevels forged all the way down to the edge right there, nice and straight. And you can see that there's a distal that comes from the ricasso down to the heel. That's nice and centered. You can see how straight the edge is, how straight the tang goes into the edge. There we go. And then of course our ricasso, got our even tang going down into there. I'm going to toss it back in the forge and let it start its annealing process. If you don't know what that is, I'll tell you here in just a second. So basically, let me move y'all back up here real quick. I got a couple of blades I want to show y'all too. So, whoop, pull y'all back. There we go. So, what this is right now, we got it in the forge. We're letting it heat up and then cool down slowly so that it gets everything nice and soft. Makes it easy to drill through, things like that. And it kind of, this isn't a normalizing cycle, but it does kind of normalize the steel. It puts it back to almost like factory specs, if you want to call it that. It evens everything up after you get done abusing the heck out of it while forging, and it relaxes everything. So we're annealing it right now. But what I wanted to show y'all, so if y'all remember, we have the profiles that are up here, because there's a lot of people that haven't seen these. Whoa, pull you back just a little bit. So these profiles that are right here, these are profiles that I drew back in the days, okay? Now, I'm going to show y'all these blades to give y'all an idea of how close we forged them. So this one, I've got a lot of stuff that's happening with it right now. I've got holes drilled through it, things like that. But that was the idea behind that. I've got a really cool handle piece that's going inside here that I'm working on right now. Basically what this is a ring knife. You put your finger through there, hold it like that, hold it like this. But this is fully forged to finish. Everything's forged. You can see how tight that fit up is right there. This whole entire heel here, this whole entire transition from here to here, all of that is all forged. So no grinder has touched this at all. This is all just hand filing a little bit on the spine and the swedge. It has a little swedge at the top. But that was based on that design. We drew that design and then I forged that. The one below it, this guy, is this. This is the Legolas knife. And it is an integral handle. So everything's forged here. The transition from the blade, or this what's going to be the ricasso, into the handle. The handle has been fully radiused. And the whole entire spine has been radiused too. All hammer and anvil. So you can see how the light's coming off of it. The whole entire spine is radiused. And that's all hammer and anvil. The whole entire handle is radiused all the way to the edge, all the way around the base of it. You can see, I don't know how clear it is, but there's little bitty hammer marks in there. So fully radius that and even it out all the way around. So that knife, this is just the rough sketch of it. And then we forged that. And that is like super even, super clean. And again, this started out as a piece of bar, like just a little round bar. And then, talking about Damascus, we have our little ulu right here. For people that haven't seen this video or this live stream, still working on this one. This is a Damascus ulu. And it's actually kind of like a clamshell. It's radiused on this side and flat on the back side. This is like basically a Scotch-Brite belt and acid etched. I still have to do all the hand sanding and all that, but you can see all of the Damascus all the way through, even where the forging area was. And I like how there's two different patterns. This pattern goes all the way across right there, and it's kind of like a clamshell. And this side is like all over the place because of the two different radiuses. For one, it's like a chisel. It's flat here and then comes down. But that was forged out of a piece of Damascus, a big block of Damascus that I got from Steve Jennings. And then when you talk about some of the knives that I've done, the people that are still new to the channel, I go crazy with some of these knives and some of the things that I do. This one, I'm working on the handle right now. So I get real crazy with some of the blades. This has dragon scales filed into the spine of it. A lot of filing to get that to happen. This is an integral bolster kukri. Hand filing on the hole here. It's like a sunburst. And then of course the scales. And this still isn't even fully done. So this is just heat treated, and I'm getting the handle kind of lined up to end up working on this. It's got a really cool piece of antler with a nice crown on the back side of it, which is going to look absolutely awesome on this. You can hold it like this, or you can hold it like this. But that is going to be absolutely sick. But whenever I acid etch this, all the dragon scales are going to look insane. Vine leaves grain to the handle. That's actually a good idea. Question: what pattern would you call pattern of the Beskar ingot Mandalorian? It's more just like a random pattern. It's not really anything. It's not like a ladder pattern or rain. If anything, it might be closer to like a raindrop Damascus. But yeah, that right there, that's going to be an epic one that we're doing. But that's all done by hand. And this blade was actually forged during one of the live streams. And then, of course, just something kind of way different on there. And I need to do another one of these with a fuller, because we did a forged fuller. We used this guillotine tool right here to actually forge in the fullers on here. So this is all forged. That's not ground in with the machine or anything like that. So you got to go through and line that up and hammer as you go to not overlap it in a weird way or get it off to one side. And that's a hand forged sax. This is going to be slightly different than a lot of hidden tangs that people have seen. So this section right here will be hidden into the handle. This section of the spine right here will be exposed. So it'll be a full tang right here into a hidden tang. So you'll actually be able to see this whole entire section, which is important because I'm going to do file work on the spine here. And that file work is going to go all the way into the handle and then disappear. So that's going to be really cool. But yeah, I need to do another build where we actually forge the fullers and do that live. This was another one that I'm working on. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to do the blade profile on it, but this is one where we took a flat bar And we did an I-beam on the handle and radiused the actual handle. Still have a little bit of work to do on this one, but it's a full integral handle, so you don't technically need to put scales on this. You actually get a full grip on it because this is wider right here. But it's fully I-beamed, so all of it's flared out and radiused. But still need a little bit of work on that I'm going to do with cold forging, and then we'll be good. But just wanted to show y'all a few of those. So how long till we're done here? We are about done right now because I am ready to eat some food. Also, I cannot wait for y'all to see the challenge build that I'm working on. So for the YouTube Knife Makers Challenge, whenever I finish this, every single person that watches the video is going to want to swing it at something. Like, they're absolutely going to want to swing this at something. It is going to be one of the coolest things I've ever made. It's going to be really cool. And the crazy thing is, it's something that people could make. Now, of course, I'm going to do really cool stuff with it, but it is, I think once I get done making it, I think a few other channels might actually try and make one of them too. Probably like Dies in Every Film or all those. I think a few of those guys will probably want to end up making one on their own. But this thing is going to look really, really, really cool. It's going to be a blast to swing around. I've got a whole costume that I'm making for the video. It's going to be kind of Halloween / post-apocalyptic themed, all that stuff. It's going to be cool. I'm doing my own custom mask and outfit and all that stuff. It's going to be awesome. I think y'all are going to really like it whenever I get that finished, but it's going to be awesome. But guys, let's go ahead. Let's wrap this one up right here. We got a lot of stuff done tonight. We turned a little bitty piece of scrap steel into a full-blown knife just by focusing on material management, shifting things where it needed to go, getting everything done how it's supposed to get done. And hopefully y'all liked the close-up of the anvil and things like that, getting the good, better angles whenever I'm actually forging. That's the cool thing about the live streams, is I can get input like that to be able to actually make the live stream better. I love having everybody here, having people in the comment section. This live stream's comment section kind of went like all the way over there while I was here doing my thing in my lane. It was like somebody's having a conversation outside the shop. So it got a little haywire, but I think y'all had fun. I think everybody enjoyed talking in the live stream and talking in the chat and doing all that stuff. So hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Thank you, Danny. Guys, I will see y'all sometime this week, plus a live stream next Saturday. Remember, we have a few things that are coming up in November where I'm going to be actually forging at a couple of shows. I'm going to be doing live demonstrations there. So I'm going to be doing one at the Conroe show in Texas. I think it's November 9th. I'll be there November 9th and 10th. Then the next weekend, I'll be at the Texas Farrier Supply event that they're doing. I'll be doing demonstrations. I'll be doing a 3-hour demo at the Conroe show, plus going up on stage and doing some stuff like that with Doug Markita. And then the next week, I'll be doing the Hammer In with Jay Nielsen. He's going to be one of the other people doing his demo. And then the weekend after that, he'll be with us at the Dragon Forge Experience. Jay Nielsen will be there as well, forging with us that weekend. I'm going to be live streaming each time I'm doing this, so y'all get to see me live stream for 3 hours at that demo in Conroe, Texas. If you can't participate and be there in person for that. If you can't be there in person and participate at the one at the Texas Farrier Supply, I'll be live streaming that demo as well. Plus, I'll be live streaming Jay Nielsen's and Doug Markita's stuff, so you can actually see that. And I'll be live streaming some of the stuff for Jay Nielsen at the Dragon Forge Experience. So it's going to be really cool. There's going to be a lot of really cool live streams, a lot of really cool things that are coming up. So I'm excited about this. I am a forger. I do forging and stuff like that, but I was a fighter whenever I was younger. But yes, I do bladesmithing and blacksmithing, and that's about what I do now. But I'm getting attacked by June bugs and whatnot. The most useless bug on the planet, June bug. Fight me over it. Now, we have those things coming up, and it's awesome. So are you talking knife forging? So yeah, stuff like these right here, like actual forging blades, getting them ready to be ground and do all of that. I do all of the forging. This started off as a round bar and got turned into this. This started off as a piece of flat bar, and we did all of that to it. I do a lot of forge to finish, a lot of blacksmith knives, a lot of kind of crazier things that some people don't do. We made this gaucho knife right here, where we actually forged this area wider. This was out of just a piece of flat bar, and we forged that wider. This is going to be a integral bolster knife, but we did that on one of the live streams. This was actually last week's live stream. So I do a little bit of everything on here. I have fun. We make cool stuff. The next live stream, what I'll probably do is pick another person's channel and do one of the knives that they're known for, and forge one of those. And then the weekend after that, I'll forge my own interpretation of that knife with my flair added onto it. So I'll try and get as close to their profile and what they do as possible. And then the week after that, I'll actually take the stuff that I liked out of their knife and actually add that into my own build and make a cool knife that I like. So we'll have that. But guys, let's go ahead. Let's end it here. We've got almost 2 hours and 30 minutes into this. Let's go ahead and let me see what you're saying. I want a combat ready 27-inch serpentine Chris sword. That would be absolutely sick. That would be really cool. Chris swords are epic. But yes, before I continue talking on here, because we've been going for a while, I'm going to go inside and eat some dinner. I hope all of y'all have an absolute amazing rest of your weekend. Y'all stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all this week. If I get a Shop Talk Tuesday video out, I might go ahead and release one this week because I got a few things that I want to talk about. We're going to talk about those. I'm going to show you a couple of builds that I'm working on. And then next Saturday, we'll be working on a knife. Y'all, again, have an amazing weekend. Have an amazing week. I'll catch y'all on the next one. See y'all.